Everybody, MLive's Nick Baumgardner here, back for another edition of Ask Nick, our weekly Michigan football mailbag here on MLive. Thanks again to everybody who participated this week. Obviously, busy week, right? Utah comes in here last week, knocks off Michigan in a pretty humbling, embarrassing fashion, 26-10, and that causes just a load of questions, a load of reactions, lots of them emotional from a lot of people in a lot of spots, and it doesn't look good for Michigan, doesn't look good for anybody involved, really at all at this point. Basically the large number of questions I got this week had to do with Brady Hoke, had to do with Dave Brandon and this team. And can this team turn this around? Basically, can this team save this season? Can they get Brady Hoke off the hot seat? Can they turn this toxic tide that has kind of engulfed this entire football program and a lot of Michigan's athletic department with it? Can they turn that around this season? Well, that's a difficult question, and I would never rule anything out completely. But given what we've seen in the first 4 games, including the 2 wins and the 2 losses, and given what we know would go into kind of turning this around, I think you'd first have to look and see. First of all, wouldn't be impossible, but it would be extremely difficult, it seems like, at this point, because turning it around and really getting rid of all these negative vibes, to me, means that you pretty much win out. It means that you beat Michigan State and Ohio State. You win basically every game you have left on your schedule. Maybe you lose 1, and you get yourself to Indianapolis and you're playing for a Big Ten title game. That, to me, would be about the only way you could completely eradicate the entire mess you've created. How would they do that? You got to get a quarterback that stops turning the football over, number one. Whether that's Devin Gardner or Shane Morris, I don't know. We'll find out who that's going to be on Saturday and if that person can do it. You're going to have to figure out if your offensive line can block consistently, week in and week out. They can't hold on first down after you've made a big play. They can't jump off sides. Their pocket has to be able to sustain itself for more than 2.5 seconds on every single snap. Enough to where you're keeping defenses honest and not just having them pile 8 in the box at all times. You are going to have to fix your special teams. You had 10 guys on the field for a punt last week. And even if you had 11, I'm not so sure you would have stopped them anyway. That was that big of a mess. The week before, you fumble a kickoff on special teams. Last week, you get flagged for having an assistant run on the field and get a sideline infraction that makes kind of a difficult field goal a lot easier in a game where points are at a premium. The week before, you get flagged for a delay of game out of a timeout on a 4th and 1 in a critical moment of the game. I don't know, you're playing Miami of Ohio, but that's kind of a big moment at that point. That wrecks that. You back up, you take another one, then you screw the punt up. We can go on and on here. This team, to me, doesn't appear close. And that is the biggest concern right now. And that's why I would lean toward the side of no, I don't think they can get this thing salvaged and turned around because they just don't seem close. If they were closer, if this was a matter of circumstance of you're just getting some tough breaks and you're right there and, one thing goes the wrong way and you can't really, some things that maybe you can't control, that would be one thing. But that's not what's happening here. These are a lot of controllables that they're screwing up, and their themes. And, I asked Brady Hoke earlier in the week if he was happy with this team's discipline, and he turned that around on me and basically said, I feel like we're the least penalized team or whatever. And I wasn't talking about penalties, but I think he knew what I was talking about. Mental discipline and understanding how to play fundamental football from play to play, week to week, game to game. They don't show that. And until that starts, no, I don't think they can get this turned around. And my bigger question would be, can you pull that all off in the span of basically an 8-game season or, a month and a half, 2 months, whatever it is? Can all that be fixed in this short amount of time? Boy, I don't know. That would be a tall, tall task. And I just think that there's so many things that you have to fix right now. You've got to just, at this point, the only thing they can do is just literally go one step at a time and block everything else out. And it has to be win every play. Not win every game. It has to just be win every play and go from there. And let that kind of build. And just, it's going to be negative. You're going to have people still upset and still upset and still upset until you prove otherwise. The problem you're in now is that you're running out of time to prove otherwise. And, the other problem, I guess, is that you're in this kind of, in your football program is obviously the doorway to your athletic department. I get a lot of questions about Dave Brandon. Is he culpable here? How much is to blame here on his footsteps? And, I go back to this example this week with the Coca-Cola ticket promotion that comes out. It looks like it's coming from a Coke vendor. Michigan says that was miscommunication. They basically say that's not coming from them, that was coming from a vendor. However, it's their tickets. Those tickets were sold to a Coke vendor, whatever. They make their decision on what to do. In any event, the fact that that's even remotely allowed to sort of skirt itself out there, the fact that it was probably, I'm assuming at some level, discussed by someone in that department as that was even an option, is ridiculous. And that is one of the things that people criticize about this department run by Dave Brandon, is that there's just these little things that continue to pop up that fans get frustrated with. And one of which, and a big one, is the tickets. And you go back and you look at 2 years ago, or whatever it was, I believe it was 2 years ago, they upped the ticket price for student tickets. They raised the price to $295. Students now have to pay $295 for a season ticket. That includes all the home games. That is more than any other school in this league by a pretty decent margin. Forget the fact that the schedule is weak. It's not always weak. Anyway, they raised the tickets to $295. One of the reasons Dave Brandon says at the time was we didn't think students, we being Michigan, didn't think students were valuing the price of a ticket enough. They weren't showing up at games, so they weren't valuing that investment. They didn't think the ticket was worth as much as it should have been, so they raised prices. Okay, that's fine. So you come out this week, and you are basically, and whether you're completely to blame or not, the fact that this ever surfaced, you're basically somebody's giving a ticket away for $3, and you're telling your students that they have to pay $300 for all these games, and you're turning around and selling a ticket, whether you completely knew what was happening or not, the fact that it even existed for $3 is ridiculous. And it's things like that that just irk people and bother people and irritate people. Those are all their own problem. The second part of this is that Brady Hoke is the football coach who's been here for 4 years, and his team doesn't appear to be getting any better. The man who hired Brady Hoke is Dave Brandon. So this is his hire. This is his, this was going to be part of his legacy, was he fired Rich Rodriguez, he hired Brady Hoke. He's not absolved of this, folks. I can't imagine why anyone would think that he is. He certainly has blame in this, just like Brady Hoke does. Now, he has blame for other things, not on the football field. We can get into discussions. People think he's too meddlesome, whatever it might be. I'm not going to get completely into all this, all that sort of stuff here. I'm just saying that nobody is completely innocent in this, and that there are things that have been done athletic department-wise that have irked people. People are upset. They feel like Michigan has turned into a business-like atmosphere, that the collegial environment is going away. I don't agree with that in every instance, but I can't disagree with that in many instances. I think that's certainly valid, and I think that's happened, and that's a problem. The biggest problem is that you have a toxic cloud surrounding your program, the biggest program you have, and that's the door to your athletic department. You have a toxic cloud surrounding your entire athletic department, and the only saving grace, seemingly on the surface, that you have right now is that you have a basketball coach who's proven to be pretty elite, who's about to start another good season, possibly here in a few months. That's where you're at. You're just hoping that works out because we're not sure what this football team will do. This is a bad situation. They're in a bad spot. And it is going to take one heck of an effort from that football team, basically every step of the way for the rest of the season to eradicate this. And even then, I don't know if you'd get rid of all of it. It's just a negative situation that's been building and building and building, and I don't know how it completely goes away. I really don't. I think it's just going to have to be a sustained deal. And if they finish the season with a worse record, and when I say if they get this turned around completely, that means that they're beating their rivals in these Big Ten games, and they're competing for a Big Ten championship, and they're legitimately at the end of the year a team that you say, boy, they're in the hunt for this thing. If they're not, it's not going to be this middling deal. It's not going to be they're either 9-3, 10-2, or maybe they're 8-4. No, I'm pretty sure at this point we can go ahead and guess they're either going to turn it around or they're not. And when I say they're not, I mean bowl eligibility is on the line here. I mean they could really have a poor record at the end of the season because there's not one game on this schedule where you look at it and say that's an automatic victory. So they're either going to completely flip this thing or continue along. I don't see anything happening in the middle. I think it's either going to be a massive turnaround that everyone's wowed by and everyone says, boy, they really did one there, or it's just going to be more of the same and they're going to struggle and they're just going to continue to decline because I don't know any other way it happens. And basically anything less than really flipping the script, pushing for a Big Ten championship, playing in Indianapolis, giving yourself a chance, anything less than that, boy, I don't know. Then what are you really doing at that point? I mean, if you're 8-4, 7-5, you've lost to all three of your rivals. You're not relevant in the Big Ten in a year where the Big Ten is absolutely terrible. If that all happens, then what are you really doing? And at that point, a change, it would seem, would be absolutely needed, and I don't know how you would spin it any other way. So, in any event, that's a long answer and a long rant probably, but this is not a good situation, obviously, that they found themselves in. At this point, the only thing they can do is bunker down together, go one foot in front of the other at the time, and see if it works. But a lot of things need to be addressed in a lot of areas by a lot of people. And, you know, changing quarterbacks or whatever, or not changing quarterbacks, that's not going to fix everything. So we'll see on Saturday. This will be interesting to watch, no question about it. The eyeballs will be perched down there, no matter if you're at home or in the stadium, whatever it is. We'll see how it goes, and we'll be here to cover it. Brendan and I will be back Saturday night to cover the game, and we'll have content for you from there. Until then, we'll talk to you guys later.